Hi guys, welcome back to Byte Review. From everything I've read and watched, the Huawei P20 Pro could well be the new phone camera champion for the Android world. So if that is the case, we'd better see how this AI-infused triple stack camera compares with Apple's best, the iPhone X. Before we get started though, just some notes. I only tested both cameras on auto and didn't make use of the other dedicated modes on the P20, such as that crazy night mode and the wealth of other options available. The AI functionality was activated, but other than that I went in as standard as possible. Let's get started with a good example here of the P20 Pro bringing its high dynamic range chops into action. We've got a good overall exposure in those darker areas of the photo, but where it really shines is in keeping the highlights in control at the top right. If we switch to the iPhone, we can see it has blown out those same highlights quite badly, despite the rest of the image looking pretty good. If you'd excuse a horrible tunnel photo here, there's a similar photo produced from the P20 Pro, which managed to keep everything exposed well and also kept a handle on those highlights at the end of the tunnel. Again, switching to the iPhone, we see it struggle with those highlights. This actually started to become a recurring theme with these types of photos, with the iPhone arguably only coming out on top once in this shot, where it's managed to keep the tree branch and the sky exposed correctly, while the P20 has lost it completely. In this photo, we really start to see the P20 AI enhancements come into play. Simply dubbed greenery is one of the more obvious AI tricks, which activates when you point the camera at this sort of image. The AI bumps the green massively, saturating the image almost beyond belief. I mean, this is even surpassing Samsung's level of colour bumping. If you look at the iPhone image in comparison, the difference is pretty staggering. It's a truer picture, sure, from the iPhone, but I actually quite like what the P20 is doing here. It might be a bit extreme, but for an instant social media share, I'd probably go with the P20. Pointing the P20 Pro at flowers will also engage the AI as well. The flowers effect bumps up the colours and crushes the blacks, leaving us with quite a contrasty and poppy image. And while I like the effect, I think it overdoes it a little here. Switching to the iPhone, which has taken a more lifelike and neutral approach, it's managed to keep more detail in general too, with the P20 most likely losing it thanks to AI playing around with the image a little. I think the ideal effect here for this style of photo would be somewhere between the two, keeping that detail from the iPhone but also taking some of the colour from the P20 enhancements. More AI trickery at work here from the P20 Pro, with those greens being boosted into oblivion, not only on the stems of the flowers but also bringing out the leaves on the trees. There's also some work going on with the heads of the flowers here too, making the colours extra punchy. The iPhone shot actually looks a little dull here compared, but you can't deny the fact that it was closer to how the scene really did appear. Side by side, the difference is pretty huge, and the P20 has managed to keep the highlights of the sky a bit better controlled, while the iPhone appears to have blown them out. There are times when the AI doesn't quite get it right though. Again, we see the P20's enhanced colour kick in here, but this time round it's at the cost of the highlights, which have completely blown out. No doubt from the brightening effect for the greens. You really can tell straight off the bat that the image has been edited too, and it's not really massively tasteful. The iPhone, on the other hand, has kept things much more natural, and the sky has been kept in check too, creating an overall better balanced image. It was rare that the P20 did slip up, but when it did, it seemed to mainly be in white balance. In this shot, it really leans into the cooler tone with a blue tint to the overall look. The iPhone has managed to get the balance right with a much better reproduction of the scene. There's also more detail in the iPhone shot too, with the sign on the right side being quite a bit clearer. The same is true here, the P20 again leaning towards that cooler tone over the iPhone, which captures the white balance better in general, giving a better overall rendition of how the scene really did appear. In these shots, I zoomed in as far as I could go with both phones, and I must admit, I'm really impressed with the P20's hybrid zoom here. It's managed to capture a surprising amount of detail on the shot, while keeping the noise to a minimum. Switching to the iPhone, you can see the zoom hasn't fared quite as well here, with a loss of detail and much more noise in the roof tiles. Looking at portrait mode quickly, I straight up prefer the P20's. Firstly because it doesn't zoom in to capture your subject, which means you generally don't have to move around like you would do on an iPhone, and secondly, I think the bokeh effect applied is much nicer too. It's more blurry and not untastefully so. The P20's image is even fantastic zoomed in too, keeping the detail level nice and the colours looking pretty good. Interestingly, for the first time while testing phone cameras, I actually found some of the photos I took were so similar, it was difficult to pick any real difference between the two. There's very subtle colour difference here and there, but overall the images really did look similar. If I had to blind test these, I wouldn't be able to tell you which phone took each shot. And maybe that's a good thing. It's nice that we're getting to a point that all flagship cameras really are decent. I feel like I've mentioned this 100 times before, but you'd be really hard pushed to be disappointed with either one of these cameras. I really feel like for the past couple of years you'd have to buy a dedicated camera to see any significantly better results. The P20 Pro might be a step in the right direction though. An AI infused camera makes those instantly shareable photos really easy to capture. However, I do think for everyone that likes those improvements, there might be the same amount of people that dislike those improvements. Personally, I think it's an interesting feature, and if I owned a P20 Pro, I'd definitely leave it on. There was a definite difference between the two phones though. The P20 Pro definitely had better dynamic range, and when the AI gets it right, it can make for a really cool image. The iPhone's white balance was better in general though, and it still holds the crown for the more lifelike images, which just happens to be Apple's way of doing things. That does give you more room in post for editing pictures, but if you're not into editing photos at all, the AI functionality on the P20 Pro may well be a better camera companion for you. And it's also an interesting look to see how phone cameras may work in the future. I know I've barely scratched the surface of what the P20 Pro is capable of, but hopefully it gives you an idea of what the camera acts like outside of the box. Thanks for watching this video, and if you've enjoyed it, pop a like and I will see you in the next one.